Good evening and welcome. Call to order the Design Review Board meeting for Monday, June 30th, 2025, and ask for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Tessa, call the roll, please.
Board Member Valadora,
Here. Or yes?
Is that an abstention, Board Member Valadura?
Sure.
Said yes, see.
Board Member Clausen,
Yes.
Board Member Rainey,
Yes.
Board Member McNaughton,
Yes.
Chair Zuber.
Yes. Okay, and our next item is code of conduct, and I'll invite Steve to kind of present that to the committee.
Yeah, Bruce is gonna be here. He had ran into some type of issue this evening. Basically what this is just something that the council was passing out to the individual officials that are appointed to the committees, just to have everyone have an opportunity just to review and take a look at it. And he said if anyone has any specific questions, to certainly feel free to give them a call.
Right.
Just some basic guidelines. That's about this.
Steve, I have a question. Maybe I can ask you. It says here, early reading the packet and endeavor to ask questions of staff beforehand. I've never adopted the second part of that sentence as my practice since staff is here and I felt it was appropriate to ask questions in the forum. Is it better practice for me to pick up the phone and call you beforehand, or is it better practice to ask questions of staff in the meeting?
I have, from our perspective, we don't have a problem with either. If there's something that someone wants to touch base with us ahead of time, that's perfectly fine. If they want to bring it up here, no issue whatsoever. So I'm always happy to speak to anybody about the staff or the information prior to the meeting if anyone has any questions ahead of time. Does that answer that question vaguely enough for you?
Yes, I mean,
It's an
I
option,
did
either
bring-
one is option, and you can, right now, if you're doing option two, that's perfectly fine. But certainly feel free to ask me a question ahead of time if you wish to do so.
got it. Yeah, I have a question on 25-10 that I didn't think to ask in advance, so I will be asking that
Sounds good.
during that session.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Well, thank you, Steve. Moving on, we have election of a new vice chair to the DRB, and I will call for nomination at this time. Anyone?
Nominate Michelle Valadura.
Second?
Fine.
All right, we have a nomination, Michelle. and we
What
have-
happens when you don't show up, right?
Any other nominations or discussion?
I would nominate Dollars.
So no.
I'll second that as a second motion.
You're not sure. Okay, so we have two potential vice chair nominations. Steve, a little guidance on how to just.
I think with regards to that, we would probably handle it similar to how we would handle a vote. On a motion, and so, someone will have to say some, they'll have to get some ayes and some noes, and I guess from there, see which one has more ayes.
I didn't hear what just happened. Somebody mumbled. I didn't hear. Did somebody just else nominate something or something? I didn't hear.
Yes. Valerie was also nominated.
Oh. Cool. I don't need to do this, so I can remove my name.
Oh, could I ask what the general duties of the vice chair are? Other than substituting if you're not here?
That is pretty much the role.
Okay, all right. No problem.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything other to add in that. Typically you're acting as another review member. And basically that role is if the chairperson is gone, the vice chair would serve as the acting chairperson.
Okay.
Michelle, did you withdraw?
Yeah, sure, that's great. I would like to withdraw my name if there's a vote, because I don't feel like doing that. And I mean, I think I'm done in several months anyhow, so. I mean, unless, I don't want to let anybody down, but I also don't really, whatever.
Well, as I understand it, at this time, we have a nomination for Valerie for vice chair. And Tessa, would you call the roll, please? Because we've got a second.
Board Member Rainey,
Yes.
Board Member Valagura,
Yes,
Board Member Clausen,
Yes.
Board Member McNaughton.
Should I abstain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Chair Duber.
Yes. All right. We are right with the board now. Okay. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Michelle, for considering and all that. Next, we have consideration of the minutes from our April 17th Design Review Board meeting. Are there any amendments to the minutes?
One I have, that I can attend by Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
And a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
can there be a mic closer to Harvey? I can't hear a word he's saying.
It's
I'm trying to speak up and talk to the mic better, Michelle.
Oh,
He's also a helicopter, like directly overhead.
yes, I'm across the street. I can hear the same helicopter.
Tessa, can you call the roll, please?
Did Val, you made a comment to Cindy second?
Yes.
Board Member Clausen,
Yes.
Board Member Rainey,
Yes.
Board Member McNaughton,
Yes.
Board Member Valagura,
Yes,
Chair Duber.
Yes. All right, very good. Moving right along, we will now begin the public comment portion of our meeting and ask for non-agenda items only. And if you would like to speak, comments will be considered and by the board. And if you would state your name and mailing address. Any public comments? On Zoom? Okay, very good. Now we will get down to our agenda items. We have a non-hearing item. And this is in regards to DRB 2508, a freestanding sign, Roman Villegas application for 271 North Hemlock Street in a limited commercial zone. And the application will be reviewed against criteria of municipal code 17.62 signs. And staff report, please.
Good evening. The applicant proposes the replacement of two existing signs, one on North Hemlock Street, the other on North Spruce, that advertise for Kiki's Tacos. Application material state sign will be constructed from 1/2 of plywood, painted brown with pink lettering. The signs on Hemlock and Spruce Streets be decided. Sign on North Hemlock will measure approximately 6 square feet. And the one on North Spruce will measure approximately 2 square feet. They can total freestanding sign area approximately 8 square feet. And the approval criteria from 1762 is detailed in the staff report. And that concludes the staff report.
All right, thank you. No additional correspondence, and is there a presentation by the applicant?
I can see the applicant here.
Well. There's some discussion to be had. I don't know, we'll just proceed with presentations by proponents. Any presentation by opponents. Staff response, given that the applicant is not here, we proceed. Yes.
Yeah, I think I would go ahead and ask if there are, the applicant one more time, proponents, opponents, and then have the discussion from there and discussion. I think just in case anyone is here for this matter, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Anyone in the audience here for the sign?
Okay, so there's no presentation by the applicant. There's no presentation by proponents. Any presentation by opponents? Got the staff response. Well, do we just want to have a discussion or a motion?
I have a few questions.
Sure.
I don't know what the linear feet of the store itself is. I didn't see it on the report, but I assume because the signs are so small that it meets the criteria.
That is our understanding, yes. I had gone out and measured the store.
I see, okay. And the third sign on the presentation looks like maybe it's in the window. That's why it's double-sided. It's just a piece of paper.
Well, the third sign would be affixed to the building, and that's not part of the DRB.
Okay.
It's on the breezeway, so it's just like a little strip.
Yeah, it's just
As you walk
above the
down
door.
oh, way there, it is would be.
Great. Well, it looks fine to me. That's all I wanted clarification on.
I have, oh, sorry, hi, I have a problem with the fact that we've asked before for, Pantone color callouts because we have no idea what these colors actually are. This is just either just a representation, I don't know, photocopy of a copy, everybody's monitor is different. And, in the code, it is, we can refer to, day glow or neons. So I don't know if this is a pink neon. Also, I have a little bit of a problem with the MDO plywood substrate, which is wood and resin laminated together, which is not an approved material. And I think via the as per the I guess just criteria that the intent is to have things to not look machine made, and this seems like it's leaning towards it looking machine made. It doesn't say, does it say, it says it's hand painted, paint on MDO plywood. Yeah, so I don't know, there's too many questions, and since they're not here, I would say I have a problem with this.
Michelle, I was about to move that we continue this. I don't think it's appropriate really to hear it without a presentation.
Well, I think it's important that we have a discussion about some of our questions and concerns about this, so if you end up continuing it, that the applicant can know what to
You
come,
need to show up, yeah.
right? Is that?
Yeah, I think that would be fair. If some people have concerns, at least that way we can share them prior to next meeting so that hopefully whether or not there's any questions or additional materials that need to be put in, we could share that with them if you'd like to do it.
Yeah, so if we can, what concerns or questions or
I actually
thoughts?
kind of reject that. I mean, that would give this applicant 2 bites at the apple, whereas every other applicant gets 1 bite at the apple. So, no, I'd like to hear a presentation of what is proposed, and then we can react.
Right. Well, I guess some of my questions, yeah, were the colors and then whether these are decals that are being applied to this plywood.
Yeah.
I also have major concern about the freestanding structure itself because it looks like it's to me, and that's where I was gonna question. It looks like 2x4s are holding it up. And then there's also some blocks of wood up on the top, and so it seems to be in major disrepair. If we're putting a nice new sign in there, it would seem that the freestanding portion would be rebuilt maybe, or somehow brought up to functioning as a freestanding structure. You know, the colors, I think one says brown and pink, and then the application says burgundy and pink, so it's not clear just what the colors are. And I think those were my biggest questions and concerns with this application.
I move that we continue 25-08.
All right. We're to continue. Tessa?
Second.
We need roll call for that?
Board member, McNaughton,
Aye.
Yes.
board member Valenzuela,
Yes.
board member Rainey,
Yes.
board member Kaufman,
Yes.
Chair Huber.
Yes. Okay, next, we will move on to consideration of DRB 25-10, the additional dwelling unit and garage. This is a quasi judicial hearing regarding Jay Orloff of Tolvana Design application on behalf of Hans Lindstrom for the construction of an accessory dwelling unit and garage. The subject property is located at 232 West Nebezna Street in a residential moderate density R1 zone. The application will be reviewed against the criteria of municipal code 17.70.080 to 17.70.100, the design review criteria. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the design review board to hear this matter at this time? Does any commission member believe he or she has a conflict of interest or personal bias? Has any commission member had any ex parte contacts or made a site visit?
Site visit.
Site visit.
Site visit.
And staff report, please.
Thank you. The applicant proposes to construct a detached garage with a second-story accessory dwelling unit on the northern portion of the subject property. The proposed structure will replace the existing single-story dwelling and detached accessory structure. Plans indicate that a new single-family dwelling will be constructed on the southern portion of the property. This application is brought before the design review board and is required by municipal code 1770.02 ability, which states that all new construction or new development except for single-family residence, mobile home, modular home, and their accessory structures requires design review approval. Moving into the approval criteria for the site design evaluation, the staff comment is that the site plan included in exhibit A2 indicates that the proposed ADU will be located on the northern portion of the property, approximately where the existing garage currently is. The structure will conform to the setbacks of residential moderate density R1 with a 15-foot rear setback and 5-foot side setbacks. The subject property measures 6,725 square feet. Application materials indicate the planned structure will measure approximately 1,680 square feet with approximately 1,860 square feet of driveways. Total lot coverage has not been calculated for the purpose of this application, as the plans for the review of the accessory dwelling unit do not include a fully developed rendition of the planned primary residence for other improvements such as walkways, decks, patios, etc. Moving to the architectural design evaluation criteria. The comment is. The design schematics included in exhibit A2 indicate the ADU will have an overall area of approximately 470 square feet. And be located above a two-car garage. It will have a maximum height above grade of approximately 24 feet. Have cedar shaped siding, white trim, and composite shingle roofing. 4 light fixtures will be mounted on the exterior adjacent to the building's entrances. And roll-up doors for the garage bays. Moving into the landscape design evaluation criteria. The comment is. That application materials do not provide significant information regarding planned landscape improvements. Currently, the property consists of an open area with turf lawn, no shrubs or trees are present on the property. And that concludes the staff report.
Thank you, Robert. Okay, and if there's no additional correspondence, we will call for public testimony. Pertinent criteria to be considered are noted in the staff reports and listed on the criteria sheets posted on the meeting page of the city's website. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the criterion or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or municipal code which the person testifying believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal based on that issue. Prior to the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional testimony, arguments, or evidence regarding the application. The design review board shall grant such requests by continuing the public hearing or leaving the record open for additional written testimony, arguments, or evidence. Persons who testify shall first receive recognition, state their full name and mailing address, and if appearing in a representative capacity, identify whom they represent. Is there a presentation by the applicant?
You don't have to say.
Thank you.
Giving you the numbers or numbers, thank you for taking the time to present the list from residents ADU garage to the CPU. I did provide some additional information late in the game. I'm perfectly fine with just going off the original GRB, and if you have any questions that might relate to additional information, I can reference those. So I think the easiest way to present this to you is actually just walk through my submit. Skipping the cover sheet, you'll see the survey provided from CKI. There is an existing house, an existing garage, it currently maybe classified as a shed, but there's showing you to indicate that it was a garage at one time, so we've noted it as that. These two structures, along with any concrete or decking and they're associated with them, will be demoed and removed from the site. They are currently non-compliant in that they are within too close to the setbacks, or not within the required setbacks, so these cover the zone. Moving on to our site plan, you'll see the location of the new garage. Now, we do classify this as a 2-car, but it is actually a 3-car because there's a car lift in there. One bay will contain 2 vehicles. It is relatively small footprint of 806 square feet. 2 garage doors facing to the west. We do have a long driveway, which we can speak about, but this up along the west property line, similar to the neighboring west property, which has theirs adjacent to it, roughly the same design. Ours is just a little bit longer. We do show our future 2-story home on the site plan as well, which would be put toward the southern setbacks. And we're doing this to open up a nice green space between the 2 structures for natural grass and leaving the site roughly the way it is, a nice sort of moving, rolling area, no obstruction. We can step over to the next page, which are floor plans. Here you see our first floor, 2 bays for the vehicles, along with a stairway access to the ADU above. I'll also have our second floor plan for the ADU. You might know that is a modest 315, roughly 315 square feet. Almost half of what our typical allowed ADU is. This will be used for primarily used for the owner of residence as an office. But there is the opportunity to have it rented as a long-term, and it will not be used as short-term rentals, as not allowed. We provide our parking spaces inside the garage for the ADU as well. You can see on our roof plan that we have dormers and valleys, and we have undulating roof typical to our Canada Beach design related to it. Moving on to our elevations, you'll see that we do have up on our west, we have an outdoor patio, upper level, looking out toward the view corridor between the buildings to the west, along with our man door access into garage door access. And we are proposing to have our typical white trim, cedar siding, cedar board and batten, black frame windows, which are consistent with a lot of our Canada Beach designs that we do here. Up on our gables is where we will have our board and batten, natural cedar board and batten, and in body of the house being the natural cedar. We do show our exterior light fixtures, which are also referenced on our final page of materials, so you can see that those are dark sky combined. You'll notice that we are setting this into our slope a little bit because of the slowly rolling slope toward the southwest. And also please note that we are almost 5.5 feet below our allowable 28-foot height. So we are not proposing any higher obstruction than what roughly is currently there. We also have our sections where you can see the car lift and how the roof system works, lower on the south, higher on the north with the ADU area. And then on our final page is our materials, which we show our windows, our garage doors, our roof shingles, and our dark sky compliant light fixture. At this point, I'd be willing to open up the discussion for any questions you might have. I do request that I do have the opportunity to follow up with any discussion after our presentation, before the public testimony is closed.
Questions for Jay?
I suppose it's not a DRB issue, but 18 feet to make the turn out of the garage,
Small vehicles.
small vehicles.
Yes, we do show vehicles and they're roughly the same size of what will be here. And I did work that out with the owner, this is going to be tight, and that's why we have the hammerhead turnaround at the top.
Okay.
Rather than having to back out the entire driveway.
So you say temporarily, the building will be used by the owners.
Yeah, the intention is to like small office for you.
Oh, a small office.
Yes, but he would like to have cooking facility in it, so I have to come in front of you as an ADU. I'd rather put it out there first and requesting that it be changed later.
And it looks like the space for a home, a permanent home, is about the same size as the ADU.
Correct, actually, it is. It is roughly 1,600 square feet with a 300 square foot attached garage. So this product will not be used as primary garage for a single family residence, that's the future. We are looking to permit both the house and the garage ADU at the same time. And that's why we're coming in front of you at this time before we have the house on full design. We have the floor plan fully designed, we just haven't developed a plan far enough to present to you, other than full plans. And that's where I would reference our supplemental material.
All right. Jay, could you confirm for the record the street address? Because I've seen a couple of different numbers.
For the house itself, or for this
The
project,
property, yeah,
232 West Nevesit Street.
232 West Nevesit, thank you.
And I don't believe I gave you my, did I give my people last when I started?
Oh, I don't know that you're an applicant, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess one of my, thoughts is that an ADU is an accessory dwelling to a primary residence. And since we don't have a primary residence yet, I'm not sure how to go about approving an ADU.
I understand, that was brought up. And that was where I would reference the supplemental information, seeing how we are going in for both these at the same time. There will be permit issue for the house and a permit for the garage. We're just here before you because we're in essence time, so that we don't have to wait for process of the DRB to happen while we're doing the house. If there is any question on the sequencing, I would request continuance that I come back next month with house design.
Mhm.
I already have a floor plan, I would just be able to present to you elevations in addition to the floor plan.
Mhm.
That was my question to Steve. Is there a precedent for this sequencing?
Yeah, I think, you know, as was mentioned, an ADU is an accessory to a primary use. So that was something that was mentioned. I think there's one of two ways of handling it. A, you can continue it and get some additional information like the applicant suggested. Or, there could be the ability to set a condition. And I could always, talk this through later, but basically saying that you wouldn't be able to get the, ADU building permit unless plans were submitted at the same time for the house. And that way you would be doing them basically at the same time, which is kind of what the applicant, I think, is proposing. So I don't think there would be any objection to a condition like that. But that would give us the opportunity then to go through the rest of the floor area ratio and things like that with regards to the house to verify that indeed all those things are getting covered. So I think this is kind of an initial step with the understanding that there would be a condition at minimum place that would require both to come in at the same time.
Thank you.
Continuous, work for you?
I would be fine with either one. The conditional use, or condition of the approval is fine as well, because I know I am going to go in with the house and this at the same time. I'm not gonna build this before I build the house. Or permit them both, they will both go in at the same time.
Mhm.
So, we're here to discuss the ADU, granted, this, I do understand the cart before the horse. But our focus is on the ADU itself rather than the house. And it's,
So maybe rather than setting a new precedent, perhaps we should just continue it.
I personally would like to butt in and say I am super pro smaller footprint. And this is a smaller footprint. And just because it's an ADU first, I don't really see that there's a problem, but I mean, it's not like, I don't really understand why there would be a problem having the ADU first. And I don't know. That's it.
What are your discussion by the board is out of order at this point without further presentations by opponents and so on?
I would agree with that. I think one of the other things though, with this application is the landscaping. And I think that we do a continuation that might be something that we're gonna, like to see as well, is the landscape plan.
yeah, that's fine. We were planning on having a large amount of landscaping. There are no trees that we're taking down or having in place. The little bit of the beauty of the site is that it is all green.
Right?
And other than maybe some small shrubbery around the house, the ADU itself is
Mhm.
the extent that we would go.
Mhm.
But if that's something that you would prefer to have, I have no problem with continuation. Because that way I can come in front of you next month with that information rather than having to wait till September.
Right. I mean, I think, I'm trying to think of what the best way to help you achieve your goal of the house, the ADU and landscaping without having to.
Yeah, I mean,
come back
I'll be
every
ready to go to permit
But-
mid-August, so if if we wanna come in front, if you would like me to come back in front of you in.
Would a
August.
continuance be the way to go, just, or do you want, yes?
I think it would be worthwhile going through the rest of the process of the hearing. And then at the time the board has the discussion after, hearing everyone out, then I think it would be the right time to ask what direction the board might want to proceed with this matter.
Isn't this also not going to be coming to us as soon as the code audit is done?
What I would say to that is that is what will be brought to plan commission and council. I believe that process will be before the plan commission starting in July. But, you know, until such time it actually gets adopted, the answer is this is what it is now. But you are correct, that will be what is proposed to both the plan commission and council in the amendments.
So we're working with what we have right now, Michelle.
I understand that, but I don't know. And it's just because we can doesn't mean we should, like, in my opinion.
Okay, well, is that good?
Yeah, that's fine. I just like it fast, but I just request the ability to respond and
Yes, absolutely.
thank you for your time.
Oh, yeah. Presentation by proponents. Presentation by opponents. I know we got a couple of letters, I think everyone saw, so I just want to mention those. And then any staff response.
No, I think there's a couple of different options that are available with the conditions or the continuance either way. And, you know, as I indicated, you know, those would be probably the two options. So you guys can have that discussion. We can talk more about that
Okay.
if necessary.
Okay. So do you have any additional statements before we begin
No, unless
discussion?
you had any questions in regards to the letters of opposition, okay, answer this.
Anybody have anything that they want to say about the letters that came in?
I didn't find anything in the letters that, other than pointing out the sequencing, which I think is a very valid
Right.
question.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I didn't see anything that really related to our review. Relative to, this isn't what you asked, but can we continue with discussion?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I just want to make sure that anything with the letters was brought up for the applicant to respond to. So, given that, we will move to discussion, regarding the site plan.
So I think it's a fair statement that there isn't this, you know, really a landscape plan.
Right.
I'm sympathetic to the idea of approving what we could or moving ahead with a motion to approve what we could. Just to keep things moving along, and not delay things, you know, unnecessarily. So I don't have a problem with the site plan. There is no landscape plan. I would be comfortable with the structural plan. I think we could probably move to approve those two items.
With the condition that the
With,
building.
yes, that
So are we?
nothing happens without the primary.
Are you thinking that a continuation for the applicant to come back with the building plans, or would you like the applicant to go with the building plans and
think
landscape and
You'd be
AD staff?
continuing
Yeah,
landscape, but perhaps approving the other two.
well, but I'm not sure we can approve without the, I think that's one of the conditions we're trying to figure out is if we're gonna approve it before there's a building permit for the house, so that would need to be submitted to staff.
But we can do the thing that Steve suggested, which is, this is conditional on both DRB approval and permits being issued for the primary residence.
Well, doesn't the building plan somewhat affect dimensions? Sometimes, you know, if you've got a small variation and you don't have a lot of room to work with. It may be that if you want to make the house a little bigger, you have to make the ADU a little smaller. Plus, in the meantime, what do you do with that shed? You leave the shed in place?
So the shed gets torn down to build.
Right, is that appropriate in this circumstance? It's a storage shed, it's not a garage. It's not it's very close to the place where the ADU would, but wouldn't that save some time also?
The shed is on the footprint of the ADU. So
Right,
it has
very close.
to go away.
I don't know if
Eventually.
it's possible to approve an accessory dwelling. When there's no.
Primary
Accessory, no primary.
Yeah, right.
I feel the same way. I think that,
Dangerous precedent, it could get going.
Yeah,
I mean, it specifically says in our code that it is an accessory dwelling to a primary residence. And since
Yes.
there is no primary residence that has been permitted or reviewed by staff, that, you know, a continuance.
And we don't even have a real site plan complete. We know what the possible home will look like, but we don't really know what the final home's gonna look like. So it's don't have a
Our state, yeah.
And I agree, you know, maybe the tight, you know, maybe he's gonna change his mind about that tight, you know, driveway, then, you know, so this will give some ample time with, you know, the primary building before the ADU to see where you can tweak, if needed.
Is he wanting to build the ADU first?
I'm sorry.
but Michelle,
Is he wanting to build the ADU first?
she says no, he says no.
They're both gonna be permitted and built at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I mean, the only difference like this to, you know, like some of the other ones we've approved with a new home going up at the same time is the fact that this has structures that are to be demolished and then rebuilt. But we have looked at other projects where the house and ADU did come in at the same time and then were approved that way simultaneously. So that wouldn't be different than some of the other plans that we've approved. It's just that there's gonna be demolition because there's an existing home on it, where others we've approved on vacant lots where they came to us at the same time for construction. I think it was Tanana with Mr. White, who had built a home and an ADU above the garage. So that was an example of one that was a vacant lot, but was done simultaneously. So it's not like we haven't done that in the past. If you consider, a continuance is fine. If you are considering approving it, there may be some additional conditions that staff might be wanting to share if you choose to go that route.
Well, conditions, those kind of get, you know, can be either problem or oversights, you know, for what you're trying to accomplish. So for me, I feel like the simplest thing would be a continuance where the applicant brings all the information, plans to staff, you know, with landscaping, site, architecture for both house, garage, ADU, and then it would be easy, you know, and as I think was mentioned, if there are any adjustments to what's being presented today, they would make those changes easily without having to worry about a condition that has been set.
Right, which bootstraps us into decisions at the later. I think we'd feel different if there was any kind of emergency for the condition to get this moving with issuing a permit, but stating it can't be, or approving it, but then saying that it couldn't be issued until that happens. But there is no such emergency. We're hearing from the applicant. I'd rather keep it as give us the opportunity to hear the full evidence before we make a determination.
And
We're gonna be recommending that condition regardless.
Okay.
Because there's got to be the primary house on the lot.
Right,
So regardless of whether we decide that tonight or next time, it's going to be recommended that you do just that.
Yeah, okay. Alright. So Michelle, you had something that you were gonna say?
Oh, did I? Oh. Well, I mean, we don't usually consider the primary house anyhow. We're just talking about ADU. So just because it's out of order, I just was like, I mean, I'm fine with continuing it, but I also don't mind approving it either, because I mean, as we all know, Jay's really, he crosses his T's and dots his I's and he knows what he's doing. And I don't know. I don't really see a reason to hold it up. Personally.
It's not holding it up, it's just a continuation for more information.
Okay.
For full plans, yeah,
Yes, it's however, the same thing, except it's less complicated.
right.
However, this is not a duplex. We don't review the primary residence
Exactly.
in this case.
Right.
Well, we always consider the primary residence, because it's part of the plot plan. And
No, we would not consider the primary residence in any case. It would just go to the building official. It's not a duplex.
getting close.
All right, I think the applicant has maybe something to.
Carol, want a testimony again? We can reference.
I don't think we ever closed it.
Okay, if you'd like, we could reference the supplemental material that I provided you, which will show you the exact footprint plan of the house and site plan itself.
I think that's some of the information I think the board was concerned about getting it today, and I had an opportunity to review it, but, you know, certainly can do that, as part of it. But I think regardless, what it comes down to is whatever square footages that are to be done with the accessory dwelling unit, the owner and architect are gonna have to develop the house to meet the rest of the regulations, otherwise they're going for a variance plan commission or what have you. So those are all things that would get submitted and reviewed like a typical house plan. I'm not saying that's the way that we need to go, but just so everyone's aware of it, if they're short on this or they're short on that, well, the ADU has been submitted to you as is. And the only way that they can change that is to bring it back to you for additional consideration if there's changes to it. If it's 800 and now it's going to be, you know, bigger or smaller, that change would have to go back. So just for everyone's information.
I think that's what we're trying to alleviate, from my understanding, is having you have to come back after something, so giving you time to really make sure that, yeah, this is everything and nothing's gonna change and.
Well, I have, in the supplemental material, I have the FAR lot coverage worksheets along with the exact footprint of the house and its size. Along with the revised site plan, so.
Well, I wish we had gotten that when.
We can reference that, well, I didn't know where we were going with it.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you want to take a look at that, I don't know if you have it in front of you or Robert can pull it up on the.
So you don't need another month to come up with your final plan?
Then I will provide you next month with the elevations.
Oh, elevation.
I have a floor plan, yep, and this, in the supplemental packet, you have the exact floor plan of the house and the exact floor plan of the ADU. Along with site plan with this location and its size. And in addition, I also have the full area, worksheets that I provide to you along with the lot coverage. So we are, I mean, we're there. I'm just here because I need to be in front of you because I'm client ADU. Again, I may not have, I have not provided you with full plans in the packet, but the supplemental material does have the exact floor plans.
And it's got a landscape plan?
But I do not develop a landscape plan. Again, we're looking to keep it as, you know, rolling. We're not looking to add a bunch of fluff to it, low maintenance, outdoor enjoyment. Green space between the two structures. And being compliant to our setbacks.
Yeah.
and floor area. Requirements. I mean, we are, we're in the R1 zone, we're allowed 60%, I'm at 0.59.
Well, maybe the way to resolve this is to do the conditional way, and then if there are changes, then, the permit would not be issued without us getting a real look at this and seeing whether or not everything is
That's-
consistent.
Exactly it. If I change this ADU and from any variation of what I presented to you, I have to come back to it. And size, location, structure, exterior finishes, everything down to the windows and the doors. So if I change any of that, again, that will trigger me to be back in front of it. And we have no intention of changing. Like I said, I've already calculated my house, I have a floor plan that's approved. I'm now currently working on elevations for it, which will look very similar to this ADU. Shingle, black frame windows, white trim, board and batten gable end. So,
So
go ahead, please.
one route forward is to continue landscaping, but approve site and structure,
Architect.
architectural, sorry, yeah. To me, that seems the most logical.
No, it shows good faith.
Because we don't have to see, we really actually never have to see the house, and even if you came back next month, we would still make a condition that the ADU couldn't be built without the house, because next month, you're not gonna have the building permit.
No.
So we don't obviate that problem by delay.
Mhm. I'm moving ahead with the house as it is, as shown in the supplemental material, as we speak. I know my lot coverage, I know my floor area ratio, I'm there. And I have no intention.
Didn't you submit?
We weren't, I developed ADU first and then I, just got the approval.
I see this packet as complete. Personally, I don't need to see the main structure. We're supposed to just be looking at ADUs, and I see it as complete.
Well, with the supplement, yes.
Well, I move we allow the filing of the plans for the primary residence. And we review them, but we also approve the plans for the ADU and a garage, the 3-car garage. And have the permit not issued until the house is built.
Is it clear about
Is-
the first part of your motion?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
It's
It's still in the hearings portion.
Yeah, oh,
We
okay.
haven't closed that yet,
Okay.
so.
We're not.
No.
Motion.
Okay.
And just to know, we'll submit for permit both house and the ADU at the same time.
Mhm.
So they're going, this is no different than the white project on Fnac. That was a detached garage ADU. They're both going at the same time as a single project.
Formal.
Accepted.
It doesn't ever come before us.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't come before us. It comes before the building official.
Okay, but don't we have to review it?
No,
We do not.
it's not
With it.
duplex.
Okay, so it is consistent with the drawings for the ADU on the site plan, right? Okay.
That
For
is not gonna
dimensions.
change.
The only thing you haven't got in that is the elevation.
Yeah, I've not developed the elevations for the house.
Okay.
But again, we're privy to the ADU and the garage itself.
Okay.
Not the entire scope.
All right, so it sounds like we're ready to approve what we can
Mhm.
and
Close the hearing.
close the hearing. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is there any
Yeah, no,
more
I-
discussion or staff?
Also, starting discussion.
All right,
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
we now close the public hearing and move for consideration.
Would I be able to make a couple comments before you
Absolutely,
guys?
yes, please.
Make a decision one way or the other. You know, there's been a little bit of discussion in terms of landscaping and with regards to timing. I have some language that I could throw out there for the timing if you're interested. And then with regards to landscaping, you know, one of the things that, you know, could also be conditioned if you would like is the driveway and the lights are all shining north to the house to the north. And whether or not you wanted to add some additional landscaping, say, along that north end of the driveway so that the lights wouldn't be shining directly into the house to the north. And maybe, you know, whether that would go from the northwest corner of the portion of the house that kind of sticks out closest to the north lot line, kind of to the west a little bit. That might be a decent thing from a landscaping point to add some landscaping and add landscape in the area where it could be affected in terms of its use. With regards to the condition of approval, I'll just read this and then let the committee go where they want. Applicant shall apply for, obtain a building permit for, and construct a primary residence prior to or contemporaneously with applying for, obtaining a building permit for, or constructing the accessory dwelling unit. So I can share that, but basically, I think what we're trying to do there, and I was working with, the city attorney a little bit with some language, and that was some of the things she felt comfortable with. So if you'd like, I could share that, you know, specifically, but I think, that would be the suggestion in terms of a condition of approval for the timing.
Steve, can I ask a question? Your comment on lighting? Looking at the north elevation, I actually don't see any lighting on the north side. There is lighting on the west side. Are you just concerned that the lighting on the west side will?
Either way, my take is, you're pulling in, so you might get those lights when you pull out.
Oh, you're talking about car lights.
Car lights, yeah, so when you're pulling into that, long driveway, you're driving north. And
Yeah.
those lights are going directly into the
Now I get it.
house to the north.
Now I get it. Thank you.
And so when you come out of the garage, the lights are basically going into the garage of the neighbor next door. So I didn't have as much of a concern west as I did north.
So we've got a 15-foot
Setback,
setback there that could be landscaped to.
right, and it doesn't have to be real high, I mean, whether it's a bush or something, just so I didn't get a chance or an opportunity to see what the house has, if it's windows or what that is. But I just thought regardless, if we're gonna talk about landscaping and installing some, let's put some stuff in there that can be used in a manner that does the beauty and be effective to protect the neighbor, because I think that was some of their concern.
That's fair.
How do we get all that into a motion?
If you want, I could, maybe read a couple of things, and if someone wanted to
Adopt it.
adopt that, that might be the way to go. And if you wanted to have more discussion, but, in terms of landscaping, you know, I don't know what people might be thinking of, is it bushes, is it something, you know, that part, I don't have anything specific. But I think what we want to do is, you know, in this particular case, prior to, building permit issuance, the applicant would submit a landscape plan that would show landscaping basically, on the north property line to, keep lights from shining in front of the car lights along that area, and they would submit that to us for review. And all of that.
So I'm not sure how knowledgeable Jay is on plants that could shield car lights. So I would imagine there's somebody there that could, there's Escalonia, there's a pretty dense bush.
He deals with enough people from a landscaping perspective that he's gonna have to submit something to us to, review. So I would anticipate that's something that could be done And like I said, we have that as a condition that's required building permit again, at least, we would have that in there. And I don't know if people have like encouraged particular plants or things like that, but
Something I think hedge-like, when you're talking about car lights, to me, seems the most, better use of trying to accomplish that, which is a really good point.
Steve, just another question on procedure here. Is it your view that we could put in a requirement such as that landscaping the north property line, and then our body would be done with this application?
right,
There would be no need for applicant to return.
that would, so there's two ways. You continue it and get all the information, or you look to the fact that we've gotten these conditions and you would be putting your trust in staff that we accomplish what you suggested from a condition.
Right.
I'm confident in that, but I'm not sure what everyone else's take is on that.
I'd be okay with that.
I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah.
I second.
Steve, would you state a motion that we might choose to adopt? if you would like?
Sure. So one is obviously with regards to timing. And so a motion with regards to including timing could be something to the effect of applicant shall apply for, obtain a building permit for, and construct the primary residence prior to or contemporaneously with applying for, obtaining a building permit for, and constructing the accessory dwelling unit. So basically, we're doing them both at the same time. And then prior to building permit issuance for either structure, that a landscape plan comes in to address the lighting that would go toward, to the north as part of the garage, and that the applicant submits a landscape plan to staff prior to building permit issuance.
So we would essentially be approving the applicant as submitted with those two provisos.
That's correct. And then they would be responsible for submitting the new dwelling, which would be coming in as part of this. And then we would do our typical review for floor area, hardscape, everything that goes with it. And if they meet the requirements, we would issue a building permit like we always do. And if they didn't, they would need to tweak the new home in whatever fashion necessary to meet that. And once they did that, then we'd issue the building permit.
And what Jay is saying is that the layout of the home is not gonna vary by an inch. This is the way it's gonna be.
Yeah, we're having a true plan on both.
So if we,
I'd like to comment on that though. What I'll say to that is I believe the applicant and that's what he's going to do, but I don't have plans that say that. We have plans here, but could something be submitted that was different? Of course, so
As long as it meets lot coverage.
exactly, I'm not saying Jay isn't going to, but I just need to mention to everyone that, plans could come in that are different.
the lot is so big here that there's plenty of room.
There's a lot of room to work with.
He could almost double the size of it.
Well, and with regards to that, a little bit, but the, that floor area is still there and that footprint, so, they.
It's a floor area ratio. He could increase the home at least 50%.
Yeah,
And still see it for area ratio.
yeah, and you could submit that home now and come in with a acreage later, you know what I mean? So,
Okay, let me just clarify. I think that statement, as I read what you submitted today, you could not increase the home size at all and not violate FAR.
He used the wrong length of the property. The property is 100 feet and the property is 134.5.
Oh.
But it's plenty for Irish.
So to clarify, this is a lot and a partial lot. So in order to base the lot in order to base the floor area ratio on the total size of the tax lot. Could be considered a lot combination, which is prohibited. So I believe that the applicant is basing everything on a 5,000 square foot lot and not the total combined value of property.
So you must do that.
That is our understanding.
Right, so that would limit your concern.
Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a discontinuity in the floor area ratio. Basically, if your lot was 5,002 square feet, you can build at a 50% FAR. If it's 5,000, I believe you can be at 60. Is that correct?
I don't believe there's anything in the R1 zone that requires you to build it at 50% FAO. That may apply in lower density zones such as residential low density, things like that.
Is it always 0.6?
In R1 and R2, I believe it is.
I thought there was a discontinuity at 5,000 square feet.
No, with some of the lower density zones, you won't encounter that, but I don't think that's the case for R1 and R2.
But the practical matter is a lot combination couldn't be considered here. So this is a applicant based on a 5,000 square foot lot.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. The conditions that are being considered. Are those going to be in, okay, so the landscape, when we get to that, is where they would go. So we can just move forward with the site and architectural.
Yeah, and that's one of the things you could talk to Melissa about too. I know one of the things we've talked about is kind of consolidating 3 motions into one. And I don't see that there's a real problem in terms of if you want to do that and just include the conditions. Otherwise, you could go through each one individually and add a condition during that time. But I don't see any reason that you couldn't say, I need to approve the landscape or the architecture of the landscape and then the site plan subject to these conditions.
Right. Who's ready to make a motion?
I move to approve the applicant's package, including all 3. Subject to
Can you
the,
state that, let's be.
yeah, okay, the site plan, architecture, and landscape, subject to the 2 provisos that the planning director outlined.
With regards to landscaping and the timing of the building permits.
Nicely stated.
I second.
All right, we have a motion. Tessa, can you call roll, please?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yes. Let me
Yeah,
say.
clarify, he's already applied for his building permit.
No, he has not.
He is not, okay, so you
Yeah,
have to
totally
do
makes
okay, that was my question, thank you, all clarified.
Any other questions? All right, there's a motion. Tessa,
Board member McNaughton,
Yes,
board member Valora,
Yes.
board member Rainey,
Yes.
board member Faulkner,
No,
Chair Huber.
yes. All right. Motion is passed. The conditions. All right. Next, we will move on to consideration of DRB 2509, commercial patio repair and replacement. This is a quasi-judicial hearing regarding Steve Gaddis on behalf of Sand Trap Properties, application to replace and repair 3 patio decks located at 387 South Hemlock in a residential medium density R2 zone. The application will be reviewed against the criteria of municipal code 17.70.800 to 17.70 6.100 design review criteria. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the design review board to hear this matter at this time? Does any commission member believe he or she has a conflict of interest or personal bias? Has any commission member had any ex parte contacts or made a site visit?
Like this,
Site visit.
Right, is it?
Okay, thanks. Staff report, please.
Thank you, this will be brief. The applicant proposes the replacement of 3 exterior patios at the Beaches Inn at 387 South Hemlock Street. Application materials indicate that the current decks are in poor condition and need of replacement. The new decks will be the same shape, size, and design style as the originals and use truss flooring and cedar shake siding. No changes to the site plan or landscape design are proposed as part of the application. And the architectural design evaluation criteria are included as part of the staff report.
Thank you. And with no additional correspondence, we'll call for public testimony. Pertinent criteria to be considered are noted in the staff reports and listed on the criteria sheets posted on the meeting page of the city's website. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward that criteria and other criteria in the comprehensive plan or municipal code which the person testifying believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal based on that issue. Prior to the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional testimony, arguments, or evidence regarding the application. The design review board shall grant such requests by continuing the public hearing or leaving the record open for additional written testimony, arguments, or evidence. Persons who testify shall first receive recognition, state their full name and mailing address, and if appearing in a representative capacity, identify whom they represent. Is there a presentation by the applicant?
Yes.
Come join us.
Thank you for hearing us tonight. We sure appreciate you being here. Kamala Gaddis, PO Box 220, Cannon Beach, Georgia.
Steve Gaddis, PO Box 220, Cannon Beach, Georgia.
So, what we're proposing is just to replace in the exact same style with the cedar shake siding, white trim. Style, shape, size, everything exactly the same. We're just repairing, rebuilding so that it's in good shape. And I think that, drawings were included and you've got what you need, so please feel free to ask us questions.
So you're planning to replace all 3 at the same time? Because I noticed one little deck is completely gone.
It was too far behind where it's unsafe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so you're gonna just replace all of them at the same time and not just one at a time, or?
It's all at the same time as much as possible. We'll probably, finish that.
So stage it out.
It kind of stages a little bit, but it's all according to, how quickly we can go.
Mhm. Okay. Any questions for the applicant?
So the only material change is the composite floor depth.
Yeah, instead of the wood or that.
And then, well, what about, are you gonna have that nice little rounded, is that gonna be the cedar shake?
Yeah, just like it is.
Just, are you planning to save those and reuse them?
It's all shot.
Okay,
They're too far
Okay.
from, unfortunately.
so there's gonna be some nice, architectural, I don't know how you bend,
I
little
don't
railings, but
know
it's nice.
They do that, but we've
Yeah.
got somebody that'll
Yeah.
help us to take.
Yeah. That was really nice, kind of enclosed it a little bit there.
Yes, cute
From
one.
the street, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, without any other questions or discussions, any presentations by proponents? Opponents? Or additional staff response?
No, this was just brought back to you. It's basically a repair of the existing commercial buildings. Gotta come to you guys for review and approval.
All right. Any additional last minute statements before we?
No.
I think so, it's pretty straightforward.
All right, so we will close the public hearing and move for consideration.
I move we approve the replacement of the 3 decks in front of Beaches Inn as per the application,
Okay. So that's a motion to approve the architectural design.
architectural design, yes.
Okay, for our criteria. All right, so motion, second. Tessa, call roll, please.
Board Member McDonald,
Yes.
Board Member Barbara,
Yes.
Board Member Clausen.
Yes.
Board Member Ray,
Yes.
Chair Huber.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
approved. Yes. Don't go anywhere.
Way too far.
Okay. Next on our agenda, we have consideration of DRB 24-20 amendment to conditions of approval. This is a quasi judicial hearing regarding DRB 24-20 Steve Gaddis on behalf of Sandtrap Properties, application for an amendment to the approved DRB 24.20 plans for an alteration to a mixed-use building. The subject property is located at 188 West Jackson Street in a residential medium density zone. The application will be reviewed against the criteria of municipal code 17.70.080, 17.70.100 design review criteria. Does anyone object to the jurisdiction of the design review board to hear this matter at this time? Does any commission member believe he or she has a conflict of interest or personal bias? Has any commission member had any ex parte contacts or made a site visit? Site visit. All right, and staff report, please.
All right. So this is a project that's been going on for a little bit of time. I think in August of 2024, there was after fact review of exterior alterations to the mixed-use structure consisting of the 1 residential unit and 2 hotel units. The alteration includes the enclosure of both upper and lower level decks on the western facade of the residential portion of the structure and conversion of those areas into habitable space. And since this was a mixed-use building consisting of both residential and commercial uses, design review was required before the applicant could apply for building permits. During the hearing before the board had found that the architectural plan was consistent with the design review requirements. One of the conditions staff was recommending at the time was the need for a variance to lot coverage, which the design review board included in the approval. After receiving the DRB approval, the Gaddisons then applied for a variance to the Cannon Beach Plan Commission. The Planning Commission did not deny the request, just citing some of the criteria involved in the variance. With that, the Gaddisons appealed that Plan Commission denial to the council, and the council upheld the denial. However, one of the actually, there were a couple comments from council with regards to the structure that they thought, similar to the board, that the building was well designed and that staff should continue working with the applicants to see if there were other options that might be available for the structure to get approved. Subsequent to that, the applicants hired Miss Jennifer Brager of correct me if I'm saying any.
That is well done.
Timothy Brager in Dubai.
Too bad,
You're really
close.
Sorry about that. And so there's been a lot of conversation back and forth in terms of what sections of the zoning ordinance could be reviewed and considered as part of this to see whether or not that variance was required or not. And after working with the attorney, there is a certain section in the zoning ordinance that refers to non-conforming structures. And that's section 17.88.040. There's certain criteria that have to be met, that indicate that a non-conforming structure may be improved. And up to a certain amount of, a level of the assessed value, so it's 50% of the assessed value. The applicants have provided a significant amount of data, both from their own information as far as costs and construction, as well as getting appraisals and utilizing the county assessed values to determine that 50% rate. And based on the numbers that they looked at, they've given a low and a high number, and both of those numbers fall well below the 50%. So, and with regards to the variance, as far as the lot coverage wasn't really changing because the footprint was staying the same, even though it was being enclosed. So it was staff's belief that the applicant has provided the information that we needed to confirm that, yes, they're meeting this non-conforming structure, and therefore the original condition of approval for the variance wouldn't be required. But because that condition is still out there, the applicant is unable to submit for a building permit until that condition is removed. So that's what they're in here for today. I believe the applicant will have some additional information to share with regards to that. But that concludes the staff report.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move right to presentation by the applicant.
Okay, we're just gonna, I brought some paper. I have a lot of paper. The one first. Sounds good. My name is Jennifer Rager. And my address is 121 Southwest Morrison Street, Suite 1850, Portland, Oregon 97204. I represent the applicants, Pamela and Steve Gaddis, who are members of the Ocean Spray in LLC. I have this brief PowerPoint, just to sort of guide us through what we're talking about. And I just really want to thank Steve for that, helpful staff report. I think this has been a long road for my clients, and we're really happy to be before you today and want to be able to wrap this up for them. So the Gaddises own, if you would go to the next slide, they own the property located at 188 West Jackson Street here in Cannon Beach, where they've lived full-time for many years. And this board is familiar with the application as the design review for and after the fact approval that Steve described related to exterior alterations includes both the upper and lower level decks on the western facade of the residential structure. And those were undertaken by the applicants to resolve water damage related to the property. The residential structure is connected but separate from the motel structure on the site for purposes of the building codes. Again, this board approved those alterations in file DB 2024. And the next slide. So water damage to the property remains as the applicants have continued to work through city processes and gather information that shed light on some of the procedures that may have made sense in the initial file review. But information came to light during the review process that identified this unnecessary condition that we're before you tonight. As the applicants have described in the application materials, they never meant to violate the code in making the improvements in which they had sought permits prior to the undertaking this work. As we've heard the history of this, it's hard to live in an unfinished space for so long. The applicants operated under an honest mistake based on outdated over-the-counter advice. And as you can see from those photographs, the water damage to the interior of the home remains significant, and they have been unable to obtain building permits to complete the work pending their resolution of this application. So the next slide. This application requests removal of condition 1 is a major modification heard before the board to remove the requirements for a variance for lot coverage. And the city code 1770-110 A2C allows the DRB to remove a design review condition, and this condition had been imposed based on the staff's analysis that the maximum lot coverage had been exceeded. The Gaddises moved forward with the variance, and during that review, they obtained additional documentation from their architect to show that the lot coverage reviewed in the DRB staff report contained an error. And that further analysis of the structure, the non-conforming structure supported review of the approval conditions. And this discovery and related analysis led to the current application. So the next slide. So the history of the property, its unique mixed use and nonconformities are described in detail in the application materials. In addition, we have provided an in-depth discussion of the calculation of lot coverage and showed that the improvements did not increase the nonconformity. As I mentioned, much of this information came to light during the variance hearing request before the city council, and the city council recognized that a variance was unnecessary and denied the variance. However, the city council did not have the authority to remove condition of approval 1 because that is this board's purview pursuant to a major modification process that we're undertaking here. So it's the reason we're here is because when you have non-conforming structures, it can be very confusing to like figure out how the code applies. And so in an effort to keep things moving, the Gaddises went for their variance approval. And then we're able to determine all of these machinations of the code related to that quantification of the lot coverage and the building coverage. And we get to the point where we are now the non-conforming structure. And so at the conclusion of the city council hearing, the city council provided direction to staff as described to work with the applicants to resolve the matter. So slide 6, the next slide, please. We really appreciate the applicants really appreciate staff's review, comments and questions of the applicants during the review of this application to reach a practical solution. During the city's review, the applicant was able to submit additional evidence to establish the fair market value of the improvements were far less than the 50% of the fair market value of the building as indicated by the records of the county assessor under the code. Even using the highest number of $135,821 $135,821.30, which includes the appraiser's evidence of the cost of the improvements and the labor and materials estimate to complete the work. The amount is far less than 50% of the assessed value. And the staff report contains findings in agreement with this conclusion. So the next slide, we note a few miscellaneous items related to the paper that I passed out. The staff report did not contain our office's brief May 22nd letter resolving a last incomplete email to request this as a major modification instead of the original minor modification. A copy of that letter is resubmitted today just to make sure you see it in front of you that this is a major modification request. And then also one link comment came in this week that was forwarded faithfully from staff and was sent to us, and it's related to the parking on the property. This DRB file does not make any changes to the parking, and the comments do not address any of the criteria that are applicable here, but nonetheless, the information on this slide shows that the area in the comments photographs is a dedicated parking area appropriate for the Gaddises trailer and boat, and that the area fronting it is a driveway that should not be blocked by parked cars. So we submit that additional letter today responding to this comment, which is essentially pointing out this picture to you in writing. So the next slide. Based on the information in the record, the application materials and additional information provided this evening, the applicants request approval of this major modification to remove condition of approval 1, and really appreciate the city's effort to reach a practical solution here. So we're all available to answer any questions you might have, materials that were submitted, but it's been a long road. We really hope for approval.
Who would like to start? Any questions?
I have some questions. Are you relying on 17-88040 to allege that it is a non-conforming structure entitled to the exceptions to the rule, but if it is under a certain amount of square footage? And the fair market value is the cost of them is less than no more than 50%. Is that the statute? Is that the ordinance that you're relying on?
Yes, that they have a non-conforming structure that is not exceeding that is not increasing the non-conformity. And
Okay.
that's that 50%.
All right. Well, the definition of non-conforming structure is, that, the statute, the ordinance applies if the structure was lawful at the time, at the effective date of the adoption of the amendment. This ordinance was really intended to minimize hardship on land use activities that were subject to restrictive zone changes, based on the ordinance that was passed in 1979. And this wasn't even in existence in 1979.
But it still applies to approved uses that may be non-conforming. So as we've described in our letter at length, the non-conformity arose when the building permit was approved for the house in 1997.
97 is 2 decades before. How does this ordinance apply to a building that was built later?
How does it not? And
Well,
Oh, excuse me. Hi, sorry to jump in here for the first time and say hello, and nice to meet you all. I'm a city attorney, taking over for Bill Kreisman, who retired on us all. I just wanted to sort of focus the board on the purpose of the application tonight, which is to ask the board to remove the condition requiring a variance, and that's based on the city council's prior and binding interpretation that the variance procedure is not available for this. And that is really the only request that's before the DRB tonight. So I just wanted to kind of refocus the criteria instead of just based on what the city council's determination was. Thank you.
Well, I have a question. I'm wondering how the DRB can make a determination on a non-conforming structure when that seems like a planning land use
Correct.
decision. And so
That is correct.
I'm having a hard time rationalizing how we can just remove a condition without it going to planning commission to yet again determine whether it meets the criteria of this non-conforming ordinance that is being used.
I can answer that. As far as the non-conforming structure, this is an administrative process that is available for applicants. There's nothing in the non-conforming structure section that says if you do these things and the plan commission approves it, you get this. This is strictly an item that goes to staff, and then we figure out, hey, does it meet this criteria or not? And in our particular belief, it does meet this criteria, and that's the reason why there's not the need. It would still have to come to the board for the design element, but the variance doesn't come into play anymore. And so if, for example, say the structure wasn't there and we were starting from the beginning, they could raise this same subject and say, hey, we're meeting this. And then it would be up to us to interpret that to see if they are indeed meeting that. And then they would still have to come to the board because it's a commercial building for approval. So this is part of staff's job in terms of administering the zoning ordinance. And in this particular instance, along with working with the city attorney and whomever else to get advice or what have you. And there's a comfort level that they are indeed meeting this section.
Well, I understand that, but why the reference to does not, asking the applicant for information about whether or not the cost exceeded 50% of the fair market value of the building? That's a direct reference to this statute.
Right, and they
So-
provide that.
Right, I understand you're in favor of this.
I don't have a fight in this game at all. My take is that they provided the documentation that they need in order for us to move forward with the project as proposed.
So they're referring to 1788-040, and it doesn't look like they qualify based on the fact that they weren't even in existence at the time this statute was
Any
passed.
structure that is non-conforming has the ability to utilize this section.
Non-conforming in the general sense, but in non-conforming structure in this ordinance provision is a different use. It's a term of art, non-conforming structure. You can say something's non-conforming. It doesn't mean that they qualify as an exception to the rule about giving a waiver to
Yeah, my
variation.
interpretation is they're meeting,
Pardon?
my interpretation is they're meeting the requirement.
And I'll just add, if I can,
Yeah,
that, two points. So, I appreciate the city attorney jumping in because she was taking the words right out of my mouth, that, in attachment 3 to our application, we have the city council's findings that this is in fact a non-conforming structure, and that decision did not get appealed. So those findings are, make sense, and they make sense because it's also adoption or amendment of the ordinance. And so it's not just that it fixes in 1979, and as pointed out in our letter as well, the definition of lot coverage has changed since the adoption of the ordinance. There's been many changes to the ordinance. Meanwhile, the applicant itself has a non-conforming structure by virtue of the fact that it doesn't comply with the lot coverage standards overall. And it has this mix of the motel and the house. And those did predate, the 1997 approval was a rebuild. It wasn't a new development. So that process is what created the non-conformity. And so of the structure. Well, and so this does actually apply because of the way that things happen, even if they don't fit squarely. The main point is that the variance can't be achieved. There is nothing changing about the lot coverage since the 1997 approval, which has been acted on and approved and built.
And the
Subject-
city council has
Has said-
interpreted this, so it's really not our.
Yeah,
area
so
of jurisdiction.
we're just providing the additional information to cover everything that has been brought up, so that the Gaddis's can actually go and fix this.
Understood. I'm prepared to offer a motion if,
Excuse me, I think we're not quite there yet because we're just at the applicant's presentation. Sorry. So we would need to hear from any members of the public also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Not quite there yet.
Sorry.
Appreciate your,
Sorry.
yeah, and you probably want to have wine like I do with you. All right, any other questions, discussion? Any presentations by proponents? Opponents? Staff response?
no,
Any other additional statements? The applicant?
I just wanted to thank you guys for listening to this. It's been a long road. We really are trying
It's-
so much
it's
to
been
do
like a
what we
sand
can
trap.
to get this moving forward, and we appreciate you. We live here full time. We feel like we're part of the community. Lately, I felt like a hermit, just like, it's a lot of pressure to go through this for so long. And, we just want to build that bridge to get everything going smoothly and on the right track and keep it, just go forward. So we appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, very good. With that, we will close, public testimony and move to consideration. So a motion to approve the request to amend the approved site plan to remove condition of approval number 1.
So that condition was that it be that they applied for a variance for this lot, non-conforming lot
And we're removing,
covered. What?
the motion is to remove that requirement 24-.
Right, but how does that help? There was no, permit. It was about 10 years ago or 10 years ago that the repairs were made? That the water damage occurred?
We're advised by staff and council that this condition is no longer applicable. And so it's our body's job to remove it.
It's no longer applicable because why?
Because they were not able to get the variance that we thought at the time they needed in order to proceed. And they can't proceed until we remove that condition, because they don't need a variance because they have a non-conforming structure.
Under this ordinance?
Under the opinion of
Under the opinion of
our city attorney and our city council.
Yeah, and I can't reconcile this ordinance with the conclusion that it is a lawful structure at the time, a non-conforming structure. So I still have the same objections. I understand the attorney's position, city attorney's position, staff's position, but it just, the fact that the variance wasn't granted doesn't mean it's impossible or was an inappropriate condition applied by the design review board.
It wasn't a necessary condition because they could have, instead of a variance, just gone with it as a non-conforming, and it wouldn't have come to us for any other reason except that it was a mixed-use commercial, and we approved the site, we approved the architecture, and the condition was if they got the variance, but they didn't really need a variance.
Because they weren't non-conforming.
If I, could I, a minute?
Yes, yes,
please.
At the time, it was staff's belief that a variance may have been required. After it went through, the applicants hired their attorney and they quoted this section about the non-conforming structure. And therefore, based on the non-conforming structure, there is a pathway to approval without a variance.
an exception if they fall within the meaning of the statute, which the purpose of is to minimize hardship from this 1979 ordinance.
Just to
That's
close
what
the discussion on it, I want to point out also,
You have to vote the way you think then.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Did you?
Michelle,
sorry.
were you?
it's Missy, and I just wanted to point out that the applicant's council did remind us also that the city council's decision found that the variance procedure was not appropriate in this case, and that this likely was a non-conforming structure, and further directed staff to work with the applicant based on that theory. And so that is a closed issue and not an issue for this board to debate.
Well, the January 7th, the decision by the findings by city council said it denied the variance request. It didn't say it was not appropriate to apply it. So that's the way I read it. And it found the motel use. There were two non-conforming portions, and one was that it exceeded the R2 lot coverage limits, and the other one was the motel use was a non-conforming use. So I'm just reading what the city council said. So I will, I am interpreting the ordinance also as it is, as council stated, it's not, it doesn't exactly fit within that, but if equity requires that, or that the staff and the city attorney and the rest of the DRB believes that equity applies, that's a more straightforward rationale, as opposed to relying on this statute, this ordinance that applies an exception to it based only on, you know, it being in existence from 1979. So I don't think it's appropriate to cite that as authority if it doesn't apply. And equity is a different issue. If there's no other way around it, then, you know, but apparently there has been no, you need that permit to finish the renovations that you want to do. You didn't have to do the renovations or enclose it in order to fix the water damage, but that's what this is all about, right?
So we, just to put it kind of in lawyer terms, maybe a higher court than us has ruled that we do not need to pursue this hearings. The higher court is the city council. So we have to go back to what is our job. And we did our job with regard to site plan, architecture, and landscape in 2410. And had this proviso that we were advised to include at the time that is no longer necessary because a higher court than us, the city council, has already considered this.
Well, I'll show you the city council minutes, but, and findings of fact, but, you know, I don't think that's what they said, but I don't think we're gonna resolve this issue on legal grounds or anything else.
It's really not our job to argue legal grounds.
Well, it is, we are operating under an ordinance that showed what the city council that passed the ordinance had intended as the purpose for the ordinance.
But it's our job to listen to our city attorney and the higher authority, which is the city council.
Did the city council, all say this, or do we just have what the city attorney said? It is, I didn't realize the city.
Steve, would you?
Yeah.
Repeat what the city council instructed?
Yeah, I mean, it was the council's determination that they didn't believe that variance was the right process and that they felt that structures were non-conforming.
All right, I will send people around a copy of the findings of the city council, but I don't think we can go any further on this issue. It's here somewhere, design review.
So
All right.
I think there was a motion
Yes.
and I will second that motion.
Well, I'm not sure we did get the motion, we just kind of got
We-
discussion
yeah.
about the.
You can make the
So we
motion.
need a proper motion. with
Okay.
A second,
Um,
so. Is there a motion to approve the request to amend the approved site plan to remove condition of approval number 1?
from DRB 2024. So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right. Tessa, roll call, please.
Board member Rainey,
Yes.
board member Gallagher,
Yes.
board member McNaughton.
No, with my apologies, just reading it like I need to.
Board member Bachman,
Yes. I really got to go too much already. But yes.
Jerry Duber.
Yes. Great, motion is passed. Condition 1 has been removed.
Okay. And no further action needs to be taken by us.
That's correct.
I don't believe so. All right,
I think the big thing, if I could, you know, I know you guys got a number of projects that came in today, fantastic, we'll keep doing that, and your other structures.
Yep.
Okay,
I think I did.
yeah, now we gotta go through the building permit process, so at least we're there. And so we can have some more discussion, there is an opportunity for appeals to decisions. But once that appeal period would go out, then there would be the opportunity to discuss, building permits.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
You're-
Okay, and we'll move right into a motion for the chair to sign the appropriate orders.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
thank you, roll call, please, Becca.
Board Member McDonald,
Yes.
Board Member Rainey,
Yes.
Board Member Valadora,
yes.
Board Member Coffin.
Yes.
And
Yes. All right, and discussion time, good of the order.
I have something.
Yes, Michelle.
It's a little like silly city thing. A little group of gals with dogs meet at the school playground, and there's a dumpster that has been placed in a I don't know, attractive way, and they have asked if I could bring it up to see if they could maybe move the dumpster away from like right next to the beach and next to the welcoming man that's in kind of yucky area. That's it.
Where is it located?
It's like, so if you're going into the beach from the school down the path where the welcoming man is, there's a new dumpster. I think it's for the microplastics. And it's just like right at the beach entrance, and it's placed, it's kind of an eyesore, and they like to meet there and throw the ball, and they're all upset. And it is nice. I went and looked at it. I was like, oh yeah, it's a bit of an eyesore. If they could move it next to the school or something, that would be cool.
Okay. All right.
Do we think it's a temporary siting while they're doing their microplastics remediation?
I'm not familiar enough. I can talk to Public Works a little bit and see whether it's food bank, whether it's microplastic. I don't know anything about
It's
it.
beach
I'll first
turtles.
find out some more.
Could be sea turtles.
Oh, I thought, yeah, it could be sea turtles. I don't know. I thought,
Okay.
We'll research that later, Michelle.
okay.
Tell the Yappy Hour crowd that we're on it. Okay. House with dogs, did she say? Oh, yeah. All right, I guess the only thing I might have is that I hope we can continue discussing regarding our sign ordinance. Because I feel that there is some clarification that might be needed, particularly materials and maintenance, just to make staff's job easier and applicants' understanding easier. So that when we're, talking about MDO or stenciling or decals, we all have a clear understanding of the materials and the maintenance of those materials. So that's what I would just ask that. And we'll get a presentation by the applicant for the signs.
We'll reach out to the company.
Okay, but hopefully be ready to maybe come up with some discussion for our sign ordinance.
I agree with that completely. We've gotten so far away from what the intent is supposed to be that it's, I mean, you couldn't tell nowadays, you like what's going on. You can't even tell if it's actually wood because it's turned into compressed wood with vinyl stickers, which is totally against the intent of like handmade and carved wood and, artisan. It's been okay, but the last, I don't know, for the last year, I feel like the signs have been kind of following. But, I mean,
I think that's why we need more developed definitions so that staff, it's like wood is wood, no matter if it's pressed, I suppose, or resonated, impregnated, and so that's where I hope this committee can maybe help staff and applicants in defining that a little bit more.
I bet the technology has changed.
Well, there's that, you know, and I know cost is something, but I don't know that that's necessarily, you know, a deal breaker, for materials that we would like to see, in our signs for town.
Do your comments relate to the code audit, or is there a process here that I'm not?
It relates to the taco sign, which I feel is probably one of the,
Just generally speak
yes.
to,
That it's just generally, you know, have an opportunity maybe with this applicant to address some of that, since it seems to be that was some of the questions that arose without the applicant being here to present.
I feel like there was some excitement with technology, and then they were like, oh my gosh, we can CNC plastics that look like wood, and then we got so far away from it. I mean, I'm looking right now at a decal that's peeling off the side of the building, and if that was painted wood, it probably looked just weathered as opposed to like a peeling skin, you know?
Well, and that's what I think, you know, a lot with our ordinances, that they're subject to interpretation a little bit, which makes them maneuverable. So just want to hear some discussion on if we really want to get, you know, this is what we want to see versus this is kind of what we want to see, but just to make it easier to really understand the criteria.
And I think it will help applicants to know what
Absolutely.
is
Yeah.
expected, so that they don't go through this process and waste time.
You know, and I think one of the things, just sorry, because I'm remembering, is I would like to hear from Darwin, because he is pretty much an expert in our sign ordinance and materials, and he really does a great job, just to see what some of his ideas for how we might word materials, you know, and given that, you know, oh my gosh, you can't expect people to do that because it costs $20,000 or something. So if we could, at some point, maybe we'd see what sort of input he might have.
I wonder if it would be appropriate for this body to kind of grasp some proposed language for it. I would have to, it ultimately has to go back to the code audit, right?
Well, yeah, and so that's where that's where I think that, you know, we can just.
Because we can't really just say it.
Oh, no,
That's
that's where, but we need to get it, if it's important, I mean, which I think it is, we can get it started for the code audit that might easily just sort of, you know.
Why don't we ask Darwin to come for the good of the order next month and give us some ideas about what we could suggest to the code
Well,
audit
or,
process.
you know, let's hear.
Is that doing what you want?
Well, I think it is, I don't know, I mean, it seems like, you know, Darwin is just gonna say what he thinks, where if we can present to him what we're thinking, then that might be where he could come back and staff can come back and say, that's not gonna work.
well, the one comment, Michelle, I know you won't appreciate this, is, you know, with what it says right now, it says wood. It doesn't say MDO doesn't count as wood and things like that. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it says wood.
Yeah,
And so if we want to, I got no problem if we want to say a little bit more specifically, like MDO is considered an alternate material, or if we identify that. I have no issues with any of that stuff, and then it gets kicked here. But right now, it just says wood, and it's hard for me to say that compressed wood isn't wood.
What if,
That's right.
And I'm not trying to, I don't mean to sound bad, I'm just saying that's the challenge.
That's what Anita is saying, is it's way too loose.
And if there could be some things in there to tighten it up,
Well,
that, you know, that you guys are agreed to. You know, then we can administer it in such a fashion.
well,
I mean,
so,
in both ways, I think that when the ordinance was first written, the intent was, you know, wood that came from a tree. You know,
Sure,
not compressed resonated plywood pieces. And so that's where, if we're going to accept that, you know, it should extend, you know, that wood and say plywood, if that's indeed what we want, and that's what I think we're trying to, or what I'm trying to
What-
achieve. is-
What if, staff did a little red line? With,
Sure,
you know, with suggestions on this.
just, sorry.
Ultimately, it's not up to us to decide, but if we could bless this as a part of the code audit.
Sure,
And that would carry weight to get it injected into the code audit, right?
sure.
Well, and I really want to prevent, hopefully, people thinking that they can just go get a piece of plywood out of their wood pile and stencil on their business name. And it complies with the,
Yep.
with the area, you know,
Yeah.
so that's where I think the
Absolutely.
language needs to be, you know, signs are important first step for your business, you know, your sign says a lot, so.
And there is, I mean, I think it's a fair statement, the thing that distinguishes Cannon Beach the most is we care about what signs look like.
Also, there's a sign painter up in Astoria, Astoria Sign Painting. If you ever just drive around and look at all the windows and signs that are painted, they're actually painted. They're not decals. And she does an amazing job. Her dad actually wrote the book on sign painting. Wrote a very respected book about sign painting. So I would even recommend maybe asking her to come down. And
Maybe,
Because that's in our code.
Oh, sorry.
Well, a story, we don't want to emulate the story.
No, we
No,
don't.
we don't, we're just gonna see what we don't want.
Wait, no, what'd you say? You don't want to emulate Astoria?
No, we don't.
No,
No.
Why? They're beautiful signs. And those are already in the code.
There's also some super ugly signs.
Well, sure.
Yes.
I'm talking about all the ones that are painted on the.
Yeah, sorry.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. All right, any other good of the order discussion? Confessions?